Haute couture is not profitable in a traditional sense. So, why do fashion brands still need it? Why luxury houses invest a lot of resources, time, and money into producing clothing which will never be popular on a mass scale? It will only be worn by a few people, and sales generated from these designs will hardly cover these expenses. In a rational thinking, this structure does not make sense. However, couture has never been about profit. Couture creates authority, creative freedom, and a sense of experimentation and innovation, which fashion relies on to stay relevant. In order to understand couture, we need to understand its history and context. First of all, haute couture from French means high dressmaking. Couture was never meant to function like ready-to-wear, the type of clothing brands usually present during their regular fashion shows. Couture, unlike ready-to-wear, does not focus on volume, mass availability, and profitability. Couture operates as an institution of cultural authority for brands, which in turn allows them to scale and sell ready-to-wear or any other brand lines. So the value of haute couture has symbolic meaning behind it rather than traditional commercial model. To understand how couture operates today, we will go way back to the 19th century and understand the history of haute couture. It all started with an Englishman, Charles Frederick Worth, an English designer based in France. Before him, usually designers were considered to be dressmakers who would create clothing based on their clients' needs. And designers were never considered to be people who had authority, power, and taste making, which we associate with creative directors today. Worth entered France at a very favorable time. It was the time of the establishment of a second empire in France and the restoration of royal house in 1852 with Napoleon III. And Napoleon III's vision for France was to make it a center of culture, commerce, and innovation. It coincided with Industrial Revolution development, and Napoleon wanted people to see France as the most modern and contemporary country of its time. He wanted everyone to look at Paris as the place to be. Well, as we know today, he succeeded because everyone wants to visit Paris, and Paris holds a lot of romanticized and symbolic ideas in our minds. Napoleon III also invested a lot in textiles, manufacturing, and generally fashion industry. He will marry Empress Eugenie. Charles Frederick Worth got to dress her as much as he was a great fashion designer. He was the first person who introduced a lot of innovations in the fashion system. And that would become a very important thing, which will probably set the foundation for the modern fashion industry. So first of all, Worth started to present his collections with live models, like runway shows today. He also was the first designer to attach label to his garments, something which we consider to be very common and normal today. He also introduced the concept of seasonal collections, which would inspire the Fashion Week calendar as we know it today. He created fashion industry as we consider it to be today, an industry which tells us what is going to be in trend, what we should want to wear, what type of styles are popular and desirable. And most importantly, this industry puts creative directors and fashion designers at the front as tastemakers, authorities of taste, and visionaries. Worth would dress queens of society from Europe and America as well as real royal queens, such as Donna Maria de Gloria, the Queen of Portugal, and Empress Maria Feodorovna and Empress Alexandra Feodorovna from Russia. This approach transformed him from just a dressmaker to a true authority on fashion taste, telling these very powerful, influential women how they should dress. There is a change he will implement, and it still exists in fashion today. Think about Kate Middleton's wedding dress, designed by a powerful fashion house. Think about all the important and influential figures. Think about the spectrum of Princess Diana. Think about modern celebrities today. People aspire to dress like them in the same principle, but let's not be fooled and think that these celebrities choose this clothing themselves. Most of them work with stylists and fashion designers who tell them what we should be wearing. And ironically, as consumers, we decide what they are the ones who impact our style in turn. Eventually, haute couture will transition from craftsmanship to a fashion powerhouse. One of the most important organizations is the Fédération de la Haute Couture et de la Mode. This federation still exists today, and they set the rules for fashion weeks which take place in Paris, but also they set the criteria for what it means to be a couture house. Ironically, many brands today call them couture. Think about juicy couture. It has nothing to do with real couture. Approximately, there are around only 14 fashion houses, such as Valentino, Armani, Chanel, Christian Dior, which are really considered to be couture. And it's actually a very closed and limited industry. And this organization decides which fashion house meets the criteria to be considered a couture house. The actual term couture was only introduced in 1945 with a second wave of haute couture revival with Christian Dior's new look in 1947. In order for a fashion house to be considered an haute couture today, they need to design made-to-order pieces for private clients, have a workshop in Paris that employs at least 20 full-time staff members and at least 20 full-time technical people. We need to present a collection twice a year during couture fashion weeks in January and July, with at least 25 designs for each collection during Paris Couture Week. While it might sound like not the most difficult requirements, it's actually difficult and challenging to qualify to be a couture house. And this makes it even more desirable because it's not accessible to all fashion brands. But why this system, which was established in the 19th century, still resonates with us today? Why couture is so popular and creates a lot of attention and discussion? Because despite the fast speed of social media, internet, artificial intelligence, and constant visual saturation which we experience online every day, couture still holds the symbolic value which we really enjoy. It lives outside the logic of speed, and its slow, obsessive prioritization of experimentation and creative freedom over efficiency resonates with us. Collections show us different versions of design, from experiential flamboyancy to extreme minimalism. Unconventional constructions and simple classic silhouettes, couture has it all. And couture is a time in fashion which allows us to ask questions, to experiment, to be excited. It allows us to dream, to be playful. And it's less about what will sell next season, and it's more about what fashion has the potential to be. It's probably the most exciting and creative example of fashion which can exist, and how can it not excite us in this sense? And this creates powerful meaning which translates to wider fashion industry. While fashion industry often criticized for overproduction, sustainability, and ethical issues, couture, in a way, um, creates its own sphere where clothing is handmade with dedication to detail, precision, quality. Unlike a lot of mass-produced runway pieces, couture, it has to be made in Paris, and it has to be done by people who are qualified and paid fairly, or at least more fairly, for their work. And instead of chasing trends, couture allows time to explore, for designers to be more creative, to focus on mastery, craftsmanship, and longevity. And while, of course, couture does not address all issues of fashion, it offers a beautiful and creatively stimulating alternative. Alternative to fashion which prioritizes speed, efficiency, and rapidly moving trends. Couture is also a space for innovation. It allows designers to try new shapes, materials, colors, silhouettes. It allows them to really challenge their creative potential, and this creates innovation and true opportunity to create something different, fresh, and new. Without couture, fashion would risk falling into repetition and losing its cutting edge of novelty and creative freedom. So, the biggest paradox of haute couture, while it's not going to be sold to masses, and fashion brands are not necessarily going to be profitable from haute couture, couture sets cultural authority and creative visionary and reputation for brands to sell their ready-to-wear collections and other lines they have. And this way, fashion industry benefits from cultural visibility, media coverage, attention which brand generates from couture, and this aspirational visual aesthetics, conversation, narrative, storytelling from couture, it allows brands to sell more. So next time you are considering buying a Dior lipstick or Chanel handbag, your desire to purchase these products started from couture collections. This way, couture constructs a dream which inspires us to buy other products from fashion brands. That's why couture, it is not designed to sell. It exists to establish authority, preserve craftsmanship, and stimulate creative thinking, which in turn translates to legitimizing fashion industry, making it more desirable and relevant. It exists to set direction and stimulate the dream. And somehow without this dream, fashion industry would feel very empty. If you like this video, I encourage you to give it a like, share your comments and opinions, and subscribe to my channel to find out more.